You're on.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us today. We are going to begin shortly. We're giving some time for people to join us this afternoon. People are coming in, so we're going to give it about 30 seconds to a minute before we get rolling. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Starting or Restarting Your Aesthetic Medical Practice. We're going to be exploring practical pearls and pitfalls with some exciting people. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to give it just a little bit longer here. See numbers still trickling in. Hope everybody's having a good Thursday. All right, I think we'll get rolling. So welcome again. I'm Blake Moser. I am the Chief Marketing Officer and co-founder at Vansanity. Today's call and webinar is Starting or Restarting Your Aesthetic Medicine Practice. And we're going to explore practical pearls and pitfalls. I'm going to start by letting everyone introduce themselves. If you don't mind, the LexRx duo, do you mind giving us an introduction, who you are, and a little bit about your company?
Sure. Thank you for having us. I am Alexa. I'm one half of LexRx.
I'm Alex.
And we are a nurse practitioner owned and operated injectables only practice. And we have 2 locations in Boston and a team of nurse practitioners that we work alongside. And we also have a teaching entity. So we're excited to be here today.
Great, thank you. Fran?
Sure, I'm really pleased to be here, thank you. Interestingly enough, my career in the world of medical spa started up in Boston. In 1996, we opened the very first medical spa in the country. I currently am the Chief Executive Officer of Acara Partners, which is a business consultancy and marketing agency for the aesthetic medical industry. I am the Chief Experience Officer for a franchise company called Medspa 810, and I'm on the chairman of the Aesthetic Business Institute, which is an online learning platform for the aesthetic industry.
Great, thank you for being here. And Kelly?
Hi everybody, my name is Kelly Bennett. I am co-owner of Essential Advanced Skincare and Medspa in Dedham, Mass. And we are a boutique spa that focuses on skincare, massage, and medical services. And I'm really thrilled to be here today.
Awesome. And Jennifer?
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Jennifer. I'm a nurse practitioner and owner of Boston Medical Aesthetics. We're a med spa in downtown Boston. I have been injecting for 12 years now and had Boston Medical Aesthetics. It'll be 10 years in August.
Wow, thank you everybody. We're going to jump right into why did you start your medical aesthetic practice? And Jennifer, I'm going to put you on the spot. You've got 10 years of experience in being a solo nurse practitioner in aesthetic medicine. Tell me, what made you think, I want to be an entrepreneur and go out on my own?
Sure. So I always knew I wanted to be in the aesthetics field and a nurse injector. So I did go to NP school specifically with that in mind. And upon graduation, I was hired by a corporate med spa chain. And on the one hand, it was great because I got a ton of experience. I was, really thrown in there with a full schedule as a new grad. And so I stayed on for about 2 years. I did differ from my employers in philosophy. They were very heavy sales pressure. For example, one thing I remember is we were supposed to give every patient 60 units of Botox from here up. And I think we all know how kind of crazy that sounds. So as I grew to realize that my philosophy was a little bit different from theirs, I really did want to go out on my own, have a smaller boutique med spa that really focused more on like building the client relationship instead of, getting people in the door, kind of maintaining clients for life. So after about 2 years, I decided to leave them and started my own. It was tiny at the time, just one room, about 90 square foot injectable practice.
Great, great. And Kelly, I'm going to come to you. You're a non-practitioner. We call those business people. And so you're a business person that said, you know what, I'm going to go into the medical industry. How did you end up becoming an entrepreneur in this industry?
Yeah, I think we're all safer with me not being a provider. I fell into the industry really by chance. I moved to New York in 2001, right before 9/11, had a job lined up that fell through. So I ended up working for a plastic surgeon, and it was really like plastic surgery boot camp. I learned everything I could possibly learn, but I fell in love with the process of walking someone through the journey and really following their transformation, not necessarily on the outside, but really on the inside, and watching them change and fall in love with who they are and build their self-confidence. That was a long time ago. I've had the opportunity to work in private practices and build private practices, as well as within city hospitals. And when my friend called me and said, hey, I need help scaling my business and running my business, I didn't really have any interest in doing it because I was at home and I was focused on that. But the opportunity to do that and to really start something new for myself was really something super intriguing, and I knew it would be very rewarding. And to be able to bring in the Medspa piece based on my own background was something that was a no-brainer to me. So here we are. We spent 2 years building and renovating, and it's been a process, but we're really thrilled with where we are, aside from COVID-19.
Exciting. And as you mentioned, it's nice to have a business partner or friends doing this with you. So I'm going to jump over to the LexRx duo. Were you friends before you started your business? How did you decide, hey, we're going to do this together?
Yes. So Alex and I met in NP school. We were at Regis College together, and we came from slightly different backgrounds before grad school, but quickly became best friends before we even entertained going into business together. My background, I was at Boston University for my undergrad, where I was pre-med health science. And like Jennifer mentioned, I kind of always knew, even just back in high school, that I wanted to be in aesthetics. I always loved science, but I also always really loved art. And so when I finished at BU, I graduated a semester early, and back in 2010, everyone wanted you to have real life experience before going to grad school. And I feel like there's been a little bit of a shift in that mentality now. I feel like you can go right out of undergrad to grad school, and that's fine. But I understood the need for some experience, and I ended up working at Mass General for 3 years in the plastic surgery lab, doing research alongside the division chief there. And it was not only a really great experience to learn about the world of plastics, I was also exposed to the role of the nurse practitioner, and it helped me decide which grad school route was going to be best for me. And that's where Alex and I met. Alex came from a slightly different background, but I think it is definitely a testament to why we work really well together as business partners.
Great.
Yeah, so my background, just real quick, I went to Emmanuel College and studied biostatistics, which obviously doesn't really have much to do with what I'm doing now, but
helps on the business side.
Yeah.
She doesn't give herself enough credit.
It got me to where I am, so it's all good. I ended up working at Harvard Vanguard alongside a lot of nurse practitioners, which is when I decided to go back to school. And in grad school, for NP school is where I met Alexa. And then after I graduated, while we were launching the business, I worked in a retail health clinic. And the retail health side of my experience has really helped us grow our business here at LexRx.
Interesting. We'll definitely jump into aspects of starting your business, growing your business. And Fran, you have a lot of experience in this. So tell us, kind of give us a jump from when you started your own practice, and then I'm going to kind of pivot with you into some things you should consider when starting your own business. So Fran, how did you go out on your own?
Well, I'm somewhat of a serial entrepreneur. So I'm going to have to go back 9 ventures ago, which was, as I said, I think earlier, in Boston, Massachusetts. I had become the president of Le Pli, which was a salon, spa, and health club in Back Bay. right on the corner of Arlington and Boylston, across from the Public Garden, and in Charles Square, which is in Harvard Square. At the time, I read an article about removing age spots on the back of people's hands. And it was done, Rox Anderson had done the research, the clinical research, and it was done with a Candela laser. So I just picked up the phone and called the CEO of Candela and said, you know, this doesn't belong in dermatology practices. This belongs in high-end spas. This is 1991. So we had that vision, and it was definitely ahead of its time because we implemented this laser in our spa in Back Bay. And I think over the course of 6 months, we probably sold 10 procedures. So it really was quite the flop. Ahead of its time, people didn't understand it, but that's all right because 3 years later, Candela and I came together again, jumped into the water with both feet this time, and we merged our companies. And that's how the first medical spa was formed. And that's how the whole aesthetic medical industry that we know today had begun. And where am I pivoting?
Well, that was cool. So I'm going to pivot. I'm going to pivot you 8 more organizations forward in Acara
Okay.
Partners.
Sure.
How do you advise med spas now and your involvement in the industry now?
Sure, of course. So Acara Partners is a business consultancy on one side, and it is a marketing and advertising agency. We're located in Branford, Connecticut. We have about 20 people here in our corporate office. And on the side of our business consultancy, we work with entrepreneurs, physicians, as well as hospitals to launch aesthetic medical practices or med spas. They're, you know, critical to a successful launch. I know we were talking about that the other day, Blake. You know, when you see a successful launch, it typically is properly capitalized. In this country, about 50% of all businesses fail after about 2 years that are launched. And the number one reason why businesses fail is they're undercapitalized. And what we see in the aesthetic medical world is everybody sort of blows their wad right there and then because they want to make this big, beautiful operation. And they forget to reserve cash for the day they open the doors. And they need to pay the payroll, pay the rent, and most importantly, pay the marketing or communicate your message so that the community that you're within understands what you do and how you do it, and you're now available to them. So most failures or locations that are not so successful are just short cash.
Great. Well, I think that is a key thing we need to focus on, and something that I've asked a lot of entrepreneurs. It usually starts with, if you're going to start your own business, what's the scariest thing about going out on your own? And it seems that the common answer is the fear of the unknown, but it centers around money typically. So how do you know how much money you need to start your own business? If Jennifer, do you mind? I asked you that question and you had a great answer to it. I don't know if you remember, but how much money do you need to go out on your own? How much money is going to get you?
Sure, I don't remember what we talked about specifically, but of course there's always the fear of the unknown, especially when you have the security of a stable job, you know, benefits, and you're leaving all that for something that you really don't know the future. In terms of knowing if I had enough money, I mean, we did a lot of market research and you know, calculated our fixed costs and variable costs and costs for the build out. And I think it's always important to anticipate that those costs are going to be higher than they tell you. I don't know anyone whose build out is, you know, not more expensive than they tell you and doesn't take longer. And then once you've actually made that move, one thing that I did is I did start pretty small, kind of the opposite of what Fran was saying. I started 3 days a week on my own, and I did keep 3 other jobs. And then pretty quickly that turned to 2 other jobs and then 1 other job. And it wasn't long before I was, you know, 6 days a week.
Great. And that's a good example. And Kelly, I'm going to come over to you as a non-provider. starting a business, what were some things that you were looking at, such as how much money are we going to need? How are we going to launch this?
Yeah, I think you never have enough money. You never have enough that you want or need. And I mean, our build up probably cost us about $100,000 more than we thought naively that we thought we would need. But you forget about things as you get into the minutia of it. So you just have to, like Jen said, you have to kind of just be thoughtful in your approach, and you have to prioritize things. You have to start small and not jump off bigger or deeper than you're prepared to handle. We were in a smaller location. We built our clientele over time so that we had a clientele and a group of people that could support us when we did take a bigger location on. So we felt supported and safe. And I'm not a risk taker. That's not who I am. So my business partner probably is more of a risk taker than I am. So it's a good match in that she'll push me a little, but at the same time, I'll make sure we have money in the bank, especially for things like this, having to shut down for a few months, like, holy crap, you need to make sure you have money for that. So
Wow.
You need to be smart with how you do, and you have to assume whatever you assume, to tag on another 15-20% because it's good. There's going to be costs. Gloves cost money, and you don't think about those things, but you need to order them. So stuff adds up.
Fran, are these common answers that you get from entrepreneurs related to money, and how do you go about advising how much money a practice might need starting out?
Yeah, very common from what we hear. We're the business geeks. Our heads are in spreadsheets most of the time. When we're working for our clients, and we always build out a 5-year pro forma. And first we have to identify pro formas, spreadsheets. They're just a reflection of reality, or what you want your reality to be. So first off, you have to conceptualize your business properly, down to a list of every service you're offering, how much time it's going to take, who's the provider, etc. So you need to come up with all the data points. Once you have that, we put it into a financial model, and in the first year, the model is done on a monthly basis, and then it goes quarterly out 5 years. The reason we do it on a monthly basis is to actually identify when that runway up to profitability is going to happen. So typically, we see somewhere between the 5th month and the 9th month, the location will turn the corner and become profitable. Till then, that ramp to profitability, you're losing money. The day you open your doors, you don't have enough clients walking in the door to pay the bills, right? So that's why you have to have cash reserves. So once you figure out your runway to profitability, you figure out that delta, and if it's 75,000, if it's 90,000, or whatever that number is, we just insist to our clients that they have that reserved and in the bank. Typically, we package it right into the bank financing. So if you need $1 million to open, 20,000 you put in from your pocket and 800,000 in a bank loan, that $1 million has the cash built into it. So if it's $90,000, it's in that million.
Great. Now say we've put the pro forma together. Now I'm ready to launch my business. I want it to look good. I want it to sound good. How do we do the branding and marketing? And I'm going to go to the LexRx duo. Alex, Alexa, tell me, you've got a cool name. How'd you come up with a name and decide to brand yourself?
So we've had LexRx for 5 years now, and from the very beginning knew that we always wanted to remain a hyper-focused business. So I think if we broadly categorize the industry into more of a one-stop shop or a business that offers many services to that type of business that's more hyper-focused, we've always operated via a very kind of like lean and mean model, offering only injectables. And that was first year one as a concierge model. And when we launched, we were actually under a different brand. We had just graduated in 2015 from NP school. We were super excited and very proud to be nurse practitioners. And our name at the time was the Lex NPs, all smushed together as one word. And we thought it was the greatest name of all. And we quickly learned that many people, though we thought everyone knew what an NP was, unfortunately, not everyone understands what that name is. And what were people calling us?
They're calling us the Lex Nips. and then realized that it was just not working.
Yeah, so tough name to be called in the public sector. If you're going into LexNIPS, nobody really knows what you're offering. So we quickly pivoted and kind of swallowed our pride and understood that it was time to rebrand pretty early on in the business. But we never wanted to lose the fact that we started from a very organic beginning with the two of us. We shared not only a really deep friendship, but also our names. And we wanted to differentiate ourselves from the broader market. When we were thinking about names from the LexNPs, we were working with a business consultant that we met through Boston University, and she wanted us to work with a copywriter to think about other names for the business that didn't involve the word Lex. She felt like we were going to have to work harder to figure out who we were as a business if it didn't say it point blank in the name. And we really pushed back on that. And when we hired the copywriter, she came up with a list of names for the practice that a simple Google search would have told her that they already existed. And we just felt like we were on to something and we wanted to stick to our guns. And we felt like LexRx with the X at the end, kind of catchy. If you think about other lean models that have been successful, like Spanx, there are really cool articles about businesses that end in X or kind of that strong syllable at the end, and we loved it and we went with it. And yes, we've had to work harder over the last 5 years to make it known what we do, but I think we're pretty happy that we stuck with it.
That's very good. The route that you went is the brandable route, and it's kind of like what we've done with Vansanity, a brandable name. But I think, Jennifer, you did a great job on your name, Boston Medical Aesthetics. You tell everybody exactly what you do. Tell me, how'd you come up with that name? And has it helped you?
Sure. So I guess in coming up with it, one thing I wanted to consider was that, you know, as Medspa owners, we truly are blending a spa aspect and a medical aspect. So I think we need to be very aware of being spa-like enough that we come across very, you know, welcoming and aesthetically pleasing, but also, especially for nurses and NPs compared to physicians, I think we also have to really try to portray our medical knowledge and legitimacy. And I think LexRx, like they were saying, I think they do a great job at that. But you know, in picking our name, those were the two things I was really trying to blend. And I think that not only goes for your name and branding, but even for your office space. You know, I think it's important to make it relaxing and welcome enough that people feel really comfortable and it's not too sterile and office-like, but at the same time, they feel safe and clean and secure. Obviously,
really
with
good
COVID,
points.
that's going to change a lot.
Right. Another aspect of starting your business and launching is, I hear, location. How did you decide where you want to be located, that the market is there? And Kelly, you talked a bit about exploring that market and picking a location. How did you decide the location, knowing that's a good location for you?
Sure. So we were previously located probably less than 3/4 of a mile from here, but we were tucked in the back of a plaza, and really, even when people were looking for us, they had a hard time finding us. When we were growing in spite of that, frankly. So when we had the opportunity to move to the heart of the center of Dedham, we took that opportunity really because people would be able to find us, and people may even hear about us that way. You have to really just know where your audience is. You need to know who you're looking for and help them find you. So it's just a matter of knowing who it is you want to attract and kind of showing up.
Right. That's a good point. Fran, exploring a market, knowing it's there, what is some advice that you can give on analyzing a target market, a location? And then I imagine if you're looking at a key piece of real estate, it's quite expensive. How do you advise newer business owners or even established business owners to manage that overhead?
So first off, when we go into a market that is going to a location that an entrepreneur or a hospital wants to put a new med spa in, we send somebody in, we identify the competition, typically within a 20-minute drive time of the area that we're looking at. We literally go and shop every competitor. It can be anywhere from 6 up to 18 competitors, oftentimes. And we're looking for one, a location has proximity to market. Two, accessibility, so easy access in and out, less than 1/4 mile from a major highway, things of that nature. We're looking for visibility. As Kelly was just saying, being in the back is not visible. Being in the front is where you want to be. And that can be icing on the cake, but it also can reduce your marketing spend. You don't have to work so hard to let people know where you're at if they drive by you and see you right there from the street. So we're looking at all those things to figure out what would be the most convenient, best positioned, and also proximity to the market. So we want women incomes from 50,000 to 125,000. We want ages from 25 to 64, let's say. So we want to make sure that that location is within a proximity that provides that easy access to the marketplace themselves.
Right, right. That's much more sophisticated than what we did when we were looking at Vansanity. Our co-founder, he was numbers guy like you. Me, I'm thinking, is there a Lululemon nearby? Because I think that's our target audience.
Adjacencies are really important. I mean, that's another thing that we're looking at. We want to see, where's the Starbucks, right? Where's the Panera Bread? They've already done the work. Where's Whole Foods? Are we in the same location as Whole Foods within that, within that shopping mart? So yes, that's definitely something we look at as well. But we take it and we put it into big spreadsheets and charts and graphs and analyze it in silly ways, probably sometimes. Overthink it.
Good, good. Another aspect of starting your business or restarting your business, and I think this is important even for restarting your business. As a business owner, you always want to acquire customers, retain those customers. So I'm going to throw it out. Any of you that have some thoughts on this, tell me, how can I attract patients?
I think it goes back a bit to your previous question, which is really understanding who your target audience is. I think a lot of new entrepreneurs in any sector would probably like to think that they can capture everybody, and that's really ambitious, but I think you have to be honest with yourself and your brand and know that you aren't necessarily going to be the cup of tea for everybody. For us, we have a very clearly identified target market, which is the busy urban professional that lives, works, and plays all in the same area. And I think for us, someone had mentioned that having that visibility in your brick and mortar does a lot of the marketing for yourself, and we can single-handedly speak to that. We don't invest much into our marketing. Our physical locations are in such high foot traffic areas that the signage out front is really visible. And I think the way that we can capture our audience is a lot easier that way.
Great. I think you do invest a lot in marketing as far as effort. I've seen
time and energy, dollars maybe.
I've seen your time and energy, and I want to talk about that. Kelly, Jennifer, tell me a bit about your social media presence. Think beyond the brick walls. Tell me, how are you getting your name out there, your brand out there, and having your patients find you?
Sure. Jennifer, do you want to take that first?
Well, sure. So, my story is probably a little bit different. In starting out, when I first started, didn't really have much money and therefore didn't really put any budget into marketing. We were pretty lucky in that we're in the financial district, so we got a lot of foot traffic from, just really catering to that audience, people who want their lunchtime Botox, and we did really well with word of mouth, actually. We had, those key VIP patients, I call them, because they kind of aren't shy about sharing their experience and referring a ton of patients. So we really benefited that way. I'm kind of embarrassed to say it wasn't until COVID and not working in the office for a while that I actually sat down and wrote my first marketing plan and had a marketing interview. So in terms of social media strategy, I'm probably not the best one to ask there.
Actually, I love it because it's just transparent about where we are in the industry right now, is that we were growing so quickly. Acquiring patients wasn't easy, but it was something that could happen. And now we've hit this brick wall. You got to rethink it. Kelly, did you have a marketing plan?
We did, because I like to overthink everything. I think what you have to really do is just figure out who you are, what it is you want to focus on, and who you want to attract, and speak it to life. You have to say it out loud, and then you have to become that thing you want to attract. So, for us, we're really about authenticity and being sincere and pampering in terms of when you walk through the door. And I feel like we do that on social media as well. So we try to, and I think that in addition to social media, really just focusing on your current clientele allows you to build without having to really spend any money really whatsoever. There is time and effort, and again, I spend a lot of time thinking about things too much, but you can really grow in a lot of ways just by focusing on who you already have, and then what messages you're sending to the world on social media.
You had expressed to me, and I hear this in business, that the cheapest customer for you to keep is the one you already have. So retention is really important. How do you go about retaining that customer?
Well, you have to treat them like gold when they're there. I mean, for us, outcomes and experience is everything. So if you focus on those two things, if people are happy with the results that they're getting and they're treated like kings or queens, they're going to keep coming back. And in this day and age where people, there's a lot of loyalty, and you can follow people because of social media, but there's also people who want to kind of shop around. If you don't give them a reason to shop around, they'll just keep coming to you. So you just, and that's really where price doesn't matter as much too. You can charge really what you want if you're knocking out of the park with results and with the experience.
It's all about results. Now, Alex, I want to come to you. Tell me a time in LexRx's history where you just had a big plunder, something didn't go your way. And that's going to happen in business. We're going to hit roadblocks. I'm pretty sure that Fran's projections on the spreadsheets don't have a 2-month stay-at-home factor in. So tell me,
Yeah,
Alex,
I mean,
what
COVID is my number
this is
one.
it?
We've had, there's being a business owner, there's so many ups and downs. I don't think I can narrow it down to one thing, but like, this is a great example. I mean, we never expected a pandemic in our lifetime. So, I think you just have to be able to pivot. And that's one thing that we've learned from the beginning, is really try to be flexible and pivot. And just like, now we're e-commerce entrepreneurs, and we're selling our products online and through Instagram, and like doing virtual consults, and we're really busy. I mean, I feel just as busy as we were when we were seeing clients. So you just have to be able to be flexible and adjust, and then like redirect your attention.
And one thing we always kind of fall back on, and I think this has been different year 1 to year 2, year 2 to year 3, is really being humble about the fact that you don't know what you don't know. Neither Alex or myself went to business school, so we're at the core healthcare providers, and we've certainly had an experiential MBA over the last 5 years, but we knew when we hit that point in the business where if we wanted to keep growing and scaling, we needed outside expertise and input from individuals who had a skill set that neither one of us had. So being able to kind of remain humble, know when you need to ask for help, will help you get through those kind of entrepreneurial roller coaster rides that we all go through.
Right. And being that there's two of you right there, Alex, I have to say, have you and Alexa ever disagreed on anything, or you just see eye to eye all the time?
I know I don't have a sister, so Alex is kind of like my sister.
Okay.
Yeah, it happens.
When it happens, how do you work through that?
You got to talk it out.
Communication.
We talk more than, I probably talk to Alexa more than I talk to my husband. Like, I've seen him like maybe once today, and I've talked to Alexa like all morning.
Since 7 a.m.
So you just have to be really open and honest and communicate clearly.
Yeah. And I think you have to understand that like we don't have really any boundaries with each other, but I think it kind of has to be that way for it to be successful, and for you to grow together, and for the business to really be independently successful.
Right. You had 3 really good points in there: communicate, be flexible, be humble. You also said you need to realize what you don't know, and that's why I'm coming back to Fran. Fran, when you're talking to these businesses, what is it that they don't know? Where are the gaping holes in most businesses? And I kind of want to focus on the restarting aspect of a business. If I'm in business, it's not quite going the way I want, or I'm concerned about the future, how do I reevaluate and find those holes?
Let's talk about the current situation. Most businesses have been closed down up to 2 months right now, and they may be closed down up to 3 months in some geographies. They have to think like this is a startup. I'm back to where I was 5 years ago. Now, I didn't have to go through the build out. I didn't have to go through the hiring of staff, hopefully. But I need to have that cash ready, no matter how you get the cash, but you have to be ready to re-implement the marketing program, to cover the payroll, and to, once deferred rent, hopefully everybody got deferred rent, gets restarted to cover any deferment like that as well. It's going to be very important that you are ready with hopefully money from the PPP loan or the EIDL loan or any other state loans that are available so that you could refuel your business. I think that's critical for people to understand. Don't get stuck in the spot where after 3 months you have no money in the bank and you're going to fizzle as a business. Start up front and don't assume you're going to collect so many procedures and services, dollars for those procedures and services that you'll be able to keep yourself going. Be ready.
Right, and a question we have from the audience along these lines is, when you're exploring where to spend capital, how do you prioritize that capital?
Clearly, payroll is extremely important. You cannot perform these procedures and services without the staff on board to check people in, to provide the actual service, but also supplies. Keep in mind, somebody mentioned it earlier, that we have PPE now to buy, something we haven't had before. There's going to be that cost. And then make sure, I'm hoping that there's pent-up demand, especially, this is good for LexRx, especially for injectables, because everything we've had to cancel for anything that's repeatable, all right? So people will look different without injectables, so they're going to want to come in and get their fix, right? So I'm hoping for that, but I'm also hoping that retail might see a big demand. So make sure your shelves are stocked and actually overstocked, because you'll probably sell quite a bit in the first month of being reopened. It looks like, Kelly, are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, we're restocking. Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I think we're prepared for like a big demand when we begin. I think it's naive though to assume that you're going to grow on that pent up demand. So you have to, again, be cautious that when this might happen again in a few months, so you need to prepare ahead of time and, reserve that extra revenue that you're capturing to make sure that you're ready again if this happens again.
And one concern I have is there's a lot of money out there. It's great. It's going to get us through this time, like the EIDL and the PPP. Yeah. I'm not worried about the EIDL because that's a 30-year payback, right? So it's not like all of a sudden I have this big chunk of change that has to go out to a loan. But the PPP money, what is not going to be forgiven? And you have to pay what's not forgiven in 18 months, basically. 6 months, no payments, then 18 months. All of a sudden you're whacked with a $5,000 bill every month. Are you ready for that? Mm-hmm. That could really harm you. And I know in Connecticut, there were these bridge loans, same thing. It's going to come due in 6 months from now for 18 months. You add that in the state of Connecticut with the PPP that's not forgiven, you may be paying out $7,000 or $8,000 in loans on top of whatever your bank loans are currently. Mm-hmm. It's a little precarious, I think.
Yeah. Our CPA gave us really good advice, and he said if you can float the amount that you were given with your PPP, do that. Then see what's forgiven, swipe that over, and then give back the rest so you're not out. And I think that's really good advice.
Yeah, it definitely is. And or at least take what's not forgiven and put it in a separate bank account, and just all you're doing is paying that out because it was only 1%, or it's going to be a 1% loan. So just pay it over time, but figure you're going to just have to pay that back and use that money to pay it back. So either way.
I've got blinders, so I don't see that account listed on our.
Yes.
I also think that, sorry.
Yes, go ahead, Jennifer. Great.
I also think that highlights the importance of working with a great accounting team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you ask where you should spend your money, I think that hiring a really qualified accounting firm is one thing that's really paying off right now.
Jennifer, you're so right. Don't skimp on legal and accounting right now. Those are the two areas that you just need to get that professional advice. So.
That's really good. What are some areas that you sometimes see businesses overspending, Fran?
How much time do we have?
No. Or maybe I should ask, where are some areas where you could perhaps cut back cost during this time?
Tell you the truth. Now we take on, typically, not in time, but typically we take on 2 practices a month. And 1 or 2 for development, 2 practices a month to work with in management and marketing support. And when we go in, obviously we look at their financial statements, one of the first things we do. And usually it's a top line issue if they're having any problems, and not so much an expense issue. So it's very seldom that we see practices overspending. If they are, it will often be in payroll. You know, a 3rd person on the desk, you really only need 2 people on the desk. Or your 2 estheticians, why do you have 2 estheticians? Maybe 1.5 would do because their utilization's at 40%. So clearly you don't need 2 estheticians. So if they're overspending, it tends to be in the area of staffing.
That's a good point. I know for us at Vansanity, we looked at the fixed cost and how that becomes just a consistent part of your overhead, equipment, the lease on your building, and you hit a time like this, and those costs, they don't go away. They're there. And so one of the aspects of our business model is being able to share those fixed costs, reduce it, make it more of something that you're only spending money when you're making money, make it rentable or shareable. Jennifer, you talked about when you went into business, how you looked at what equipment should I have. How do you explore what services and services you should offer, equipment you should buy, and how do you remain relevant as a business over 10 years?
Sure. I mean, well, equipment can obviously be one of probably your biggest expense. Lasers can run in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's a bit of a scary purchase because that's something that can go obsolete pretty quickly. So I give Vansanity a lot of credit because it's really attractive to rent equipment and not having to put out that huge expense. For us, we just tried to do a lot of research and saw that the body contouring market was taking off. So we did purchase Cool Sculpting. And that's really paid off for us. However, I will go back to like what I previously said. Right after laying out that expense, the Cool Advantage came out. So when there was a treatment that was faster, more effective, and safer, you really had to upgrade. So, you know, as a business owner, these equipment purchases are going to be probably your biggest expense.
Right, and staying relevant over the years, have you mentioned you added Cool Sculpting. What are some other things that you've added throughout the years and may even be considering adding to your practice?
I mean, we're largely an injectable practice, so we have stayed that way. We do have a Medspa aspect too, and we've added hydrofacials, and that's really taken off as well. In terms of adding, you know, we're always trying to stay relevant with what's going on, attending conferences and networking. But at the moment, we're pretty space limited, so we're not adding anything at the moment.
Great, that's good. Now, Alexa, I see you shaking your head over there. I'm going to ask you, over the years, how have you decided to offer additional products or services you have kind of a multi-channel revenue. You mentioned even some e-commerce. Tell me, how do you go about adding services and products?
Yeah, in the beginning, I had mentioned we've always kind of decided to be hyper-focused with really leading with injectables. And that's something that over the years, we've definitely gotten pushback on, especially from the pharmaceutical reps. I remember the second we had taken over the lease, was it 3 or 4 years ago here in Beacon Hill, one of our reps came in and said, oh, you know, in order for you to be a 7-figure practice, you'll understand that you're going to need to add X, Y, and Z, and you can't just make it with injectables. And we just kept saying, like, I don't know, the margins make sense. And if you're priced accordingly and you're seeing enough volume, we never took out a loan. So when we started with 1 box of Botox, we grew slowly and organically 5 years ago. That 1 box turned into 5, and the 5 turned into 20, et cetera. And to date, so we've never taken out a loan, and we've never taken out outside investment at this phase in our business. And we've been cash flow positive from the beginning. And I think that's a testament to staying true to what we're passionate about, because we're not inherently salespeople either. But if you're passionate about something, you really can sell it in an authentic way. And I think for us, like lasers, machinery, all of that has never been in our passion portfolio. So it's really just been the neurotoxin and filler piece, and we've stuck with it. One thing that absolutely drives me bonkers when we attend conferences is walking into that vendor hall, and all I can think about is naive new business owners that walk in there and they're like just the target of all of these different machinery people, and they can fall so quickly into buying more than they need. And I think even if you remove the machinery from it, as a new business owner, a new practice owner, it's such a competitive advantage to be an owner operator. And I think you have to own that and know what you need in the moment. You can be forced or pressured into even buying too much from the neurotoxin side or the filler side. You know, these companies offer free overnight shipping. Like, you only need to really be buying what you need to be buying. And I think this pandemic is also a testament to that. If you were pressured into buying more than you needed, you could be sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of product instead of sitting on cash. And they're two very different, obvious ways of feeling. And I think right now we're happy that we haven't given into those pressures.
Right. I'll take the cash. You keep the products. I want to explore one last aspect of business, and then we'll open it up for some questions. We've got about 15 minutes left here in our conversation, and it's about surrounding yourself with good people, and particularly when you have a business, your colleagues and the people within your business, them treating your patients like gold so that you do retain them. They're building the brand. Kelly, being that you're not a practitioner, you have limited interactions with your customers, your patients. How do you know the people that are seeing your customers are treating them the way that you would want? And I'm going to use your word, like gold.
Sure. Mainly because I'm a helicopter owner, and we'll but you have to be, right? You have to know everything about your business, and that goes down to, I think there's 2 parts of getting started that are really hard, and it's having enough money to get started, but then also finding the right people. And if you can find the right people to support you, and that goes for your accounting team, your legal team, but then also who's answering your phone, how are they saying it? And they just need to be someone that is trainable and likable, and someone that can support you and buy into your culture and message. So you want your experience from the time someone looks at your website or sees you on social media and then calls to when they walk in to when they leave to be the same, consistent. So you need to make sure everyone that's working for you and with you is bought into your culture and your message and is delivering it to everyone that they meet. I don't know. Does that answer your question? I'm not quite sure.
It does. And Fran, how do you advise practices to build good teams?
You know, it is one of the hardest parts about being in business, hiring right, and it really does start there. We always tell people, don't hire because they have the right education or the right skill set. Hire because you believe your business beliefs will line up. They will be caring for their patients, and safety is very high on the list. And those other elements that are so important that you can't teach somebody. You can't send somebody to school to learn it. You know, hire for affability, you know, hire it for who they are, hire them for who they are, and then figure out, you know, how much more they need to know is what we tell people. And that's really where you want to invest. And so you have to put the time in though. And that's something else that people don't do. It's like, oh, I just need somebody. Well, if you ever say that to yourselves, it's the day that your business is going to start going under. I just need somebody. No, I need the perfect person for that job. I need that person to be a reflection of me as a business owner and what I believe in. It's the belief system that has to match to yours.
Yeah,
That's really
the
good.
right person can learn anything.
Yep.
We've have the saying in recruitment where you hire for culture and not for skill. You want somebody that you enjoy working with on a daily basis. So we've started getting some questions from the audience. If you've got a question, type it into the message field. But a question for the group here is, how do you recommend starting patient outreach, particularly as we begin reopening?
Just reaching out, emailing them, texting them, just being present, saying hello, checking in on them. It doesn't really, you shouldn't reach out to them with a motive. The motive should be reconnection, and that reconnection is everything.
Yeah. I think also, and the best example I've seen so far is Bill Marriott on the homepage of the Marriott website. He is on there actually walking people through every single thing the maid is doing, everything the front desk is doing, and he's showing everybody and making people feel safe and comfortable going to a Marriott hotel. We first started saying that we want you to have a Q&A up on a COVID-19 page and some other information on that COVID-19 page. We're now having our clients put up their own Bill Marriott, walk through their facility, show them how they're checking people in, how they're checking people at the front door before they come in, how the room is being cleaned between treatments. So you build up credibility that way, and you get them comfortable coming in to see you.
Great. Now, Jennifer, you just redid your marketing plan. In that, did you take in consideration patient outreach and reopening?
Absolutely. You know, like Fran was saying, there's a huge focus on safety now. We wanted to, you know, just all be on the same page with our staff and reassure patients that, of course, we've always taken that seriously, but we've made a lot of changes. We also wanted to stress to patients that they're going to expect a little bit of a different look and feel to our office. You know, they're going to get a phone call before their appointment with COVID screening questions. They're going to come in and have a temperature check at the door. We're going to be, you know, in face masks. So we wanted to just kind of communicate everything to the patient. And I think a video is a great idea. The other thing we wanted to communicate is that we're going to be slower. You know, our appointments are going to be a lot more spaced out because of this, with the need for extra disinfection and the fact that we have to social distance and have less people in the office. So we think it's very important to set realistic expectations, especially because, you know, everyone who hasn't been able to come in for 2 months might want to right away. So we kind of want to set expectations that we're going to be opening with a limited capacity at first.
Great. Now we have another question about how do you go about hiring specifically another practitioner?
It's a tough call. We've been very fortunate in that we've always scouted for talent to join our team through our teaching entity, and that's been a kind of a deliberate move because when clinicians have taken a course with us, the expectation is not there that it's an interview or that they're going to be hired. So it's created a really nice neutral territory for us to see how different clinicians engage with, you know, the models that are coming in. How are they at bedside? How do they communicate? How do they interact with one another? So we've been a little bit spoiled from that regard. I think if we didn't have access to kind of that pool of clinicians, I would honestly probably look to AMSPA or the American Medspa Association. They are an organization that was founded primarily as a tool for both legal and regulatory as well as skill set in this industry, but they have so many different forums that clinicians can join, both looking for employment or resources, even a medical director, and they seem to attract a really authentic audience. All of their events are always, top notch. It's a really good group of people, and I would probably look there first.
Okay. We had one of our attendees raise their hand. I think Dr. Michael Tantillo wants to speak to that. I'm going to unmute you, Mike.
Oh, sorry. I hit the wrong button. I wanted to ask.
That's awesome.
This
Okay, no,
technology.
I thought
this
you were going to give us some
technology,
great
I can't handle
insight on how to hire, but never mind. That's okay.
Yes.
No, I will. I will. My quick 2 cents is, I love what Fran was saying. Go with what you know. Hire the person, not the resume. Hire from, if like locally in town, LexRx, for example, trains nurse practitioners. Great source if you're looking for an NP injector, because they'll give you the straight scoop. But my question was, if I can, I just want to know how people decide how to allocate their budgets, marketing versus equipment, things like that, especially coming out of this. And how much do you emphasize customer acquisition and things like that?
So the question is, how do you allocate a part of your budget for marketing and customer acquisition? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Could I speak to that?
Please, Fran.
Okay. So for marketing, it typically is a range from, on the low end, 6%, and on the high end, 15 to 18% of sales. It depends on what type of practice you have. It depends on your reputation, how long you've been in business, how large your referral base is. Plastic surgeons that have been and dermatologists that have been in practice a fairly long time tend to have, are able to have a 5 to 6, 7% marketing spend. That's the end of sales. So if you're doing $100,000 a month, you're spending $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. For a typical med spa that is within its first 5 years, you're looking at more of a 15%, the 12 to 15% spend. And then for a med spa that's been in business for a while, has a good reputation, probably about 10% of what you're doing per month. That changes sometimes. Like LexRx, you probably are spending less than that because you're working location. So you have that in your favor, and you're able to spend much less because of the walk buys and somewhat drive buys. When you're allocating money, I hate to say this, but the most important money to spend right now when you get back in business is going to be marketing, because you have to communicate your message. You have to get people in the door. You have to restart your practice. And if you went dark during this time, you're probably going to have to look to increase your marketing spend like 25 or 30% for a couple of months. If you didn't go dark and you kept communicating to your client base and the community, you don't have to increase your marketing budget. You just have to put it back, or not put it back in place, just continue with it.
Great. And we have one more question related to training. The question is, as a newly licensed esthetician and RN, how do you gain enough experience? So I know Jennifer and also Lexa and Alex new into being a provider, providing these services. How did you gain the experience to then be able to do this on your own?
I think it's important to find a good mentor. So finding someone in your community that you admire and trust as an injector. It's an esthetician and nurse. Yeah. So an injector that you trust, and it might cost a little bit of money, but it's definitely worth it. It's a really important investment because you're definitely not going to feel comfortable right away, and that's normal and that's fine. But find someone that, like I said, you trust, that you could maybe buy into like a mentorship type package with them and shadow and then learn from them.
And there are so many wonderful virtual trainings that have been happening over the last 2 months. Alex and I have sat in on a number of cadaver classes to enhance our own knowledge base. So there's a lot we can be doing from home. We participated in a Medspa Mastery virtual conference. So there's a lot happening right now, even though it seems pretty quiet out there. But once things do sort of resume some sort of normal, and when we are able to attend in-person conferences, it's such a great way not only to learn, but to network. Show up in places even if you don't think you're supposed to be there, just show up. You'll always learn something.
And I think having a great medical director is also of key importance. You know, that's someone, as a nurse or nurse practitioner, we have to work with a physician medical director. And I've been so lucky from day one to have had a great mentor and someone that I can always reach out to if I need additional training or something I don't know. And we actually became business partners 5 years ago. So we're co-owners, Dr. Tantello and I, of Boston Medical Aesthetics. So, you know, reach out and try to find a medical director that's going to support you all along the way.
Great. I think that's a great place for us to wrap this up on the hour. I want to say thank you to our panel. You were outstanding, so much fun to work with. We got to do this again sometime. Come over to my house for some wine. Everybody that joined us today, thank you for your questions. I hope that this was able to give you some valuable insight into the industry. And if anything, I would say this is a time for us to surround ourselves with good people, especially when you're restarting. You're probably looking for energy, a way to get excited and hit the ground running again. Reach out to these colleagues, make a friend, find a mentor, get excited about what you're doing, help people feel good about themselves, and let's make sanity our vanity. All right. Let's see. I really appreciate it. Everybody have a great Thursday.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.